One of the big buzzwords that gets tossed around by commentators on boxing broadcasts is good timing. However, it's rarely contextualized or explained what exactly this means. So today, will I be the one to finally define good timing in boxing? No, I don't know how to define it either. Go ahead and click off the video. But what I can do is show examples of what good timing looks like, and maybe you could take the concepts and apply it yourself to your own boxing. Let's start off with the most basic concept, which is timing your opponent coming in. As you can see, Wilder shoots a jab to the body, then steps back to remain defensively responsible since return fire is likely coming from Tyson Fury. As you can see, he takes the step back, and as expected, Fury steps in hard to get back at Wilder. However, he realizes he isn't in range and ends up not throwing a punch. Since Wilder stepped out of range, he essentially baited Fury into stepping right into punching range, where he is now a sitting duck. So now all Wilder has to do is measure with the left and then shoot the right. You might hear many describe this as Wilder timing Fury coming in, and it is, quite frankly, but that doesn't help anyone trying to learn how to do this. Essentially, it could be simplified down to 1. Throwing a jab, 2. Stepping back to avoid return fire, and then 3. Pulling the trigger if return fire does come as expected. The last thing I want to add is that if you do find yourself in Tyson Fury's position where you realize you've walked yourself into a trap like this, you're going to want to move your head immediately. You're going to want to defend yourself somehow because you're a sitting duck. And because Tyson Fury only puts his guard up, he ends up eating the shot. However, you also notice that he does begin to move his head slightly to avoid having this punch land on his chin, because if this landed on his chin, it would have been the end of the fight there. As you can see, he begins to move his head slightly and thus making the punch land on his forehead. And I don't think I've seen anybody mention this, but because he begins to move his head and makes it land on his forehead, this has to be the punch where Wilder broke his hand. The next example I'm going to show is timing your attack by setting a rhythm and breaking the rhythm by attacking on the half beat. So one of Tyson Fury's best weapons is his feint game. Here we're going to see him time an attack by setting a rhythm of feints to get Wilder to get a feel of the rhythm, then timing his punch at the exact moment Wilder won't expect it by punching on the half beat, as many would call it. As you can see, Tyson Fury is going to throw one feint, it's going to draw a bit of a reaction from Wilder. He's going to do a second feint, draw less of a reaction from Wilder. Third feint, no reaction from Wilder, and then Fury throws the punch. And we notice in real time, if we go by the rhythm, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, punch, 4. And so Fury's first 3 feints were all in a set rhythm. Wilder would get a feel of it and would be most likely to expect an attack on one of the beats to that rhythm. However, this is a trap by Fury so that he could lull Wilder and punch in between the beats instead of on the beat, if that makes any sense. Once again, the rhythm is 1, 2, 3, punch, 4. As you can see, Fury breaks the rhythm and times his punch perfectly between beats 3 and 4, right on the half beat. The beauty of using feints as a rhythm is that they not only lull your opponent to it, but they also dull your opponent's reactions to them, as it is mentally taxing reacting to every single twitch of the shoulder or the head, and this ensures an even greater chance that this attack will work. And here's another example of Fury using a feint to help him time a counter punch. So as you see, Fury's going to do a slight feint here, and what this does is this draws out a punch from Wilder, as you see, and once the punch comes, you see Fury could land a counter left hook. As you can see, you don't need amazing reflexes or timing to set up counter punches. All this took was a simple feint to draw out a punch. Once the punch comes, you can counter it quickly since it was anticipated. Both the previous example and this one work for Tyson Fury because he feints from just outside of Wilder's reach. He does this because it ensures Wilder can't reach him with a punch if Wilder tries to time the feint with a counter. This was actually an adjustment Fury made going into the second fight, which I've talked about before, so I'll insert it here. Fury feints from just outside of Wilder's punching range. Fury has a reach advantage over Wilder, and Wilder knows this. Wilder knows he's in the danger zone and can't hit Fury back at this range, so what does he do? He steps away from the danger zone, away from Fury's punching range. Compare this to the first fight. Fury feints the jab and Wilder confidently bites on it because he knows he's in his own punching range. Wilder is in his punching range. So Wilder does have some pretty good timing and people just don't understand this. So the big key adjustment here for Tyson Fury was to use his reach advantage and mix up the feint with the step jab as opposed to mixing up the feint with a regular jab. See in the rematch how he feints with a small step from long distance? This feint allows Fury to control the space between him and Wilder and eventually allows him to control the pace of the fight. So you see here feint and then bam, step jab. He's feinting from outside of Wilder's punching range, so Wilder can't counter them. Then he shoots the step jab. Back to the first fight, Fury feints without the small step in because he's already in Wilder's punching range, gets countered. In the rematch, feints with a small step from outside of Wilder's range to make it look like a step jab, and Wilder backs up because he knows he can't reach him from this range. Fury does it again, and this time shoots the long range step jab. So basically in the first fight, Fury would feint then jab, and Wilder picked up on this, so he was able to time Fury's jab by first seeing the feint. Compare this to the second and third fight, where Fury would just feint from further out of range, so that Wilder couldn't counter him. And that's going to do it for this one. I really don't feel like the third fight had too many moments that are film study worthy. It definitely felt like the least technical of the three fights between them, and it was already pretty hard to find clips in the third fight that I really wanted to break down. So I'd normally take this time at the end of the video to make a random joke, but a lot of people seem to not like that, so instead I'm just going to thank my GOAT tier patrons for their continued support making videos like these possible. Thanks to Jason Maheenan, Grant Gabriel, Dimitri Drozdov, Albert Chen, Jeff, and Andre. You guys keep the channel going, as well as all of my patrons and everyone who's watching this video. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.